Hey, y'all, welcome back to the Late Night Vision Show. This is episode number 317. My name is Jason Robertson, owner of Outdoor Legacy, one of your co-hosts right here on the show. And as always, for the last 316 episodes, I've got my co-host, the man who makes the show, the man who edits the show, the guy who does all the behind-the-scenes hard work, Mr. Hans. What is going on this week besides the fact you're sitting in the dark running lights off of batteries? So tell the people at home what's happening.
Yeah, so 316 weeks in a row. This is the first time I've ever done the show basically by candlelight. No, so today there were some really bad storms that came through. I guess through North Texas on into East Texas, just north of you, Jason. But we had storms, just terrible. I mean, wind, really bad wind, trees down everywhere, power lines down everywhere. So we have no power, and we're hoping that the power comes back on very soon. It may be days, it may be hours, hopefully not too much longer. But yeah, there's a first time for everything. Episode 317 will go down as a first. We don't have too many firsts these days, but good to be here. Good to get another show knocked out, man.
Yeah, I know. And I tell you what, it's been a lot of storms. We had some wind and some rain, a few limbs, nothing major, not like y'all did. Our salesman Ashley, who's about 30 minutes from me, I think he said the same thing you had. It was, no power and war zone and trees down and wrecks. And so anyway, East Texas has been, and North Texas has been I think it's most of the state. It has just been the last few weeks. It's just been getting hit. But
right.
Well, guys, listen. So before we get into the show, real quick, I want to give you the quick plug for Outdoor Legacy. So most of y'all know, if you've watched this show very much, you know that Hans and I, what we do for a living is we sell thermal and night vision scopes, optics, and guys, I don't know what's going on, but my lights are blinking right now. So I don't know if you can see that on here, but it's blinking. So anyway, I may be in the dark as well. But we sell night vision thermal optics at Outdoor Legacy. It's what we do for a living. And we absolutely would love to have your business. And we know that when it comes time to pick a scope, sometimes you just don't know what to get. You don't know which one is best. Sometimes you got it down to one scope and you think, this is the one I want. I'm just not 100% sure. You need somebody to help confirm that. Sometimes you don't know where to start. You don't know if you need night vision or thermal, and you kind of got a budget in mind, but you don't even know what you can get for that. We are glad to help. If you will give us a call at Outdoor Legacy, that number is 877-350-1818. You can speak to one of the ladies. We've got three awesome ladies that work in the office, Jessica and Angela and Michaela. You'll talk to one of them, and they will kind of process your call, get a little info from you, and then you'll get to talk to either Hans or Ashley or myself, and we'll be happy to answer all those questions for you and then help you when you are ready to make that purchase, because we would absolutely love to have your business and your support. So now what we're going to do is we're going to jump into this show that kind of goes right along with us hoping to help people when it's time to buy a scope. And a few weeks ago, we did a show that was called the 5 Most Underrated Features in Thermal Scopes or Thermal Optics. And it was just a show that basically we kind of highlighted some features that we thought sometimes people might not talk about enough, or they might not appreciate enough until they get the scope. This week, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to talk about the 5 features that we believe are the most overrated. And, we want to be clear from the beginning. There's some people that are going to hear this and go, no, I love this. I got to have this. And we understand that. We're not saying these features are useless, but we do think they're probably overrated for a lot of people. The vast majority of people a lot of times think that they need these or think that they want these or that they'll use them, and then they get it and they kind of realize that maybe it doesn't work the way they think, or maybe like, okay, that sounds really cool on paper, looks good in the brochure, but maybe I don't really need it. So that's going to be the 5 most overrated features that Hans and I have come up with.
Yep, absolutely. So we are going to jump right into it, and we're going to start with the very first one, Jason. I think that you're on the first one, right?
All right, I'm the first on the list. All right, let's get this thing going. All right, here we go.
The first one you're listing is the one that I hear about quite often. And
I know.
so I'm excited about you explaining it to the folks.
Yeah, what you're excited about is all the hate mail we're going to get.
Yeah,
that I'm going to get. Yeah.
I just realized, man, I don't look good with good lights. I look really bad with this. I'm trying to scoot away from the camera.
Yeah.
If you're listening on the audio only version, just don't go over to YouTube this week.
Normally we say to go. You're saying don't go.
Yeah, just don't go over to YouTube this week. So
that's funny. Yeah. All right. So here we go. Number 1 on our top 5 list is going to be stadiometric rangefinders. Now, all right, I want to explain. There's 2 different kinds of rangefinders. The kind of rangefinders that we all like, that we all love, and that are very helpful to a lot of people are normal laser rangefinders. I don't have to explain what that is. Everybody's, familiar with a small little handheld laser rangefinder that you might use, deer hunting, bow hunting, playing golf, whatever it is. And those are built into a lot of thermal optics, and you would understand why that would be helpful. But stadiometric rangefinders confuse people. Most optics, not all, but most thermal rifle scopes and even some handhelds have these built in, and they've been there forever. As long as I've been in this industry, 11 years, most scopes have had some sort of stadiometric rangefinder in it. And people will see this and go, oh, awesome, I'm getting a rangefinder. Not really. So here's what it is, and here's how it works. And we've talked about these before on the show. But essentially, in theory, you've got 2 horizontal lines. Okay, you'll pull up this stadiometric rangefinder here in the scope, and you'll have 2 horizontal lines. And you're supposed to put the bottom line on the feet of the animal. And then you can make adjustments here with the buttons, and you can squeeze these lines closer together or widen them. And then you put the top line on the animal's head. Okay, so you've got on the feet, on the head. Then in your screen, you're going to look over to the left or the right or the top, and there's a little legend. And it's going to tell you, okay, if you're looking at, and sometimes it's different animals. Sometimes it'll say a rabbit. Okay, if it's a rabbit, and that's how far away it is. If it's a hog or a deer or an elk or whatever, and again, different manufacturers will have different little animals listed there. So here's the problem. Sounds good in theory. And you go, well, it's giving me an estimate. In all of my years with a whole lot of playing with these and knowing distances of animals, absolute knowing how far it is, using a real laser rangefinder, and then trying to make these stadiometric rangefinders work, I have never been able to consistently get any sort of a reasonable or reliable range. Sometimes it will be close, but a broken clock is correct twice a day. And I would say that they're no more accurate than a broken clock. And to give you an example, I've looked out there at, say, hogs, and I know, I can laser range for that hog is 100 yards. And the stadiometric rangefinder might say that's 180 yards, or it might say it's 40 yards, or it might say it's 60 or what. That's not helpful. Even if it says that it's 80 yards, it's still off 20%. So it's just not helpful. And some people say, well, then, why does it not work? Well, the first thing I would ask you is this. I know there's some math involved here, and they're trying to say, okay, if these little horizontal bars are this far apart, and you're looking at a hog it's calibrated to this, it ought to be about that far. Well, here's my question to you. The hog that was calibrated on, was that a 30-pound hog, 50-pound hog, 80-pound hog? 100, 152. You see where I'm getting at here? The difference in the size of that hog makes all the difference in the world. What it was calibrated. The same thing. Sometimes there'll be a picture of a deer, and I can't tell if that a deer or was that an elk, and it's got horns. Well, how tall were the horns? It sounds really cool, but it doesn't work. And I would say it's not even something that I would play with. I don't even think it's valuable enough to turn on and mess with. If you're that bored, there's got to be something else to do. And this is not a slam on the manufacturers. Most every manufacturer puts it in there. I think they put it in there because it cost exactly $0 to put it in there. And why not? but it doesn't do anything. Don't rely on it. Don't think that you're going to rely on it. If you really need a laser range or need a rangefinder, you get a laser rangefinder. That's what you want if you need a rangefinder. But these are not something I would rely on. I don't think it's much more than, what our grandparents used to call parlor tricks. It sounds good in theory, but doesn't really work. So that's my 2 cents on that.
So I would say that I have heard, and I don't know if this is true, and you may have heard the same thing, Jason, but that this steadiometric rangefinder process was actually developed in the military a long time ago, and it was used for tanks to judge the distance of other tanks. So you'd move the line above, at the top of the tank and below the tank. I don't know if that's true, but that seems like
I've heard it was, I've heard that was some theory of the military. Yeah, when they didn't have any other way to do it.
Exactly. So people call up and they're like, I don't know. I don't think that the companies try to be misleading with it. No. And maybe it's an oversight of the person reading the specs or just not knowing. But they'll call up and say, oh, I see it's got a rangefinder. And you have to explain the difference. And when you do, they realize, okay, well, that's not really going to do what I want it to do. But a lot of people ask, why don't we talk about it when we're listing out the specs? The reason why we talk about it is because, like Jason explained, it's not very accurate. It's not really, I would say, a usable feature. And the reason why most people don't talk about it is because most people don't use it. So it's in there. It's just another feature that the companies can put in there and say, hey, we're trying, it doesn't have a built-in laser rangefinder, but we're trying to get you close type of thing. And like Jason said, it's not a bad thing that it's in there. I don't know if it necessarily does anything to help you, but it's not a bad thing. Hey,
well, the last point that I'll make on it is this: where you really need a laser rangefinder is, assuming you're shooting a large caliber, is not an air gun or something, is when you get to the longer ranges. And when you get to those ranges, it matters. I mean, you don't want to be off by 50 yards. You don't want to be off by 10, 15%. You need to know, you get out to 250 yards, you need to know if it's 250 or if it's 290. That's a big difference. And so that's where the laser is going to be accurate. When this thing, you don't want to be guessing and out here just like lobbing shots in it, whatever you're shooting at. So anyway.
Not to mention the process of what animal is going to sit still long enough for you to sit there and move lines on a screen above and below. And then if you're stalking up on a hog, then you got to continually, it's a mess. Anyway, so first one on the list, most overrated thermal scope feature, steadiometric rangefinder, I would say permanently resides on this list like forever. So
Hans, when you go to your next one, I can already cue the hate coming, because you're going to have to explain yourself on this though. So y'all, before you turn this show off, you got to let Hans explain himself.
Let me explain. There's going to be a lot of people that say, that we're going to get hate mail. Okay. So I'm just going to throw it out there and then I'll explain. So the second one on the list is One Shot Zero. There's a lot of people out there that have heard of One Shot Zero. There's a lot of people out there that call about it. Hey, does this scope have One Shot Zero? I guess there's really only one company that can really claim that process by name, right, Jason? Not that it's trademarked.
I don't know if that's I don't know if it is or not, maybe.
But there's one company that uses it.
Similar,
I call it something anyway. But One Shot Zero. Anyway, so the process is, so I'll explain it so you don't know. The process of One Shot Zero, the true process, is a thermal scope that will essentially take a picture of your target. So if you're, on a piece of cardboard with tin foil and you're shooting at the target, what we tell is, you take your first shot, then you take a picture of it with the one shot. It's basically a freeze frame, but it takes a picture of your target. And then you're from there, you can move your reticle to your point of impact without the screen moving. If you're moving your rifle or whatever, you can do it without moving the rifle. Now, is this a bad feature? No. Does it work? Yes. It's not as great though, as people will call up and say, oh, you can sight it in one shot. That's amazing. Well, not really. It says One Shot Zero. I think it's a clever name, but Jason and I sat there before the show and we're like, okay, what's really the minimum amount of shots that you can take even if you're lucky, if you take a shot and that first one's like really, really close and there's not a lot of adjustments to make, you know, what we're saying is, or what we thought of was, it's really going to take you at the bare minimum, at best case scenario, 3 shots to zero that rifle, or to zero that scope. And the reason is, the first one is just to see where the first point of impact is. The second one is an adjustment. And if your second adjustment is perfect, you're going to take a third to test it. So 3 shots is what it's going to take. So,
and that's minimum. I mean, that's minimum. Perfect. You better know what you're doing and be lucky. I mean, it's perfect.
Guess what? Y'all, we have lights.
You got lights already?
We got lights. Yeah. So here we go. Okay.
They're probably going to go back off.
Something's going to happen. So the 3 shot minimum, 1 shot zero. Now, I will tell you this: the scopes that don't have 1 shot zero, I'm just going to throw this out there. To me, it's just as easy, or it's not. I
don't use it when the scopes have it.
I don't use it. So people, a lot of people will say, well, the 1 shot zero works good until you have to make fine tune adjustments. And that's 100% correct. If you have to move your reticle 10 inches, yes. If you got to move your reticle half an inch or an inch, no, I would rather just manually just move the reticle. But when you say manually, well, that's where you're holding your rifle still with the reticle pointed directly at the target, and you have your rifle locked in a lead sled, or you're just keeping it still. I don't even use a lead sled. I just keep it still as possible. And then I move the reticle myself. I don't really use 1 shot zero. It's cool. It does work. It's not going to be 1 shot. If you're buying a scope that doesn't have the 1 shot zero, the freeze frame, it's not going to make it more difficult. It's not going to make it where you're burning a whole box of ammo compared to 3 shots. The process really too is pretty much the same, of what you have to do. You're still moving your reticle to your point of impact, and you're keeping your rifle still locked in at a target. So the process is the same. It's really not any easier. It's a cool trick. I don't know. There's going to be some people that disagree, but I think it is a tad overrated, mainly because the name indicates to a lot of people it's only going to take 1 shot, when it actually is going to take at least 3, like we said, in the best case scenario.
Yeah, and I think this is the big deal for me. The only thing that a 1 shot zero scope offers that a non-1 shot does is what you said, the freeze frame. And I can do the same thing by just holding my rifle still. If you've got a lead sled or a vise, there's no reason for the 1 shot, the freeze frame. No. I don't. No. I'm on a sandbag, and I still don't. I mean, I'm up there moving around, I'm shaking around, but I still, even when it has the 1 shot freeze frame, I don't do it, because to me, it takes longer. It's just easier for me to move it over there and get it done. So I think what I want to say is, it's nice especially if, you've never done it and you don't understand what's going on. I think the 1 shot is fine. I don't think it's anything bad, but I do think people get a little confused. They really think they're going to take 1 shot and zero it. In the 3 shots that Hans and I are talking about, I'm telling you, that's the hit in the lottery. That is, shoot, it hit here. I moved it to here, but I have to shoot to see. I shot, boom, I hit the bullseye, perfect. Well, what moron is going to put their rifle up? You've got to shoot again and go, make sure I didn't pull it. I mean, I got to make sure that wasn't a fluke.
You take a test shot. At least one test shot.
You have to take the 3rd shot. And that's just a best case. I would say if you're really good, and you're sighting a lot of rifles, you might, at 50 yards, you might be able to consistently do it in 5 shots. 4 to 6 shots, I think, is reasonable. Making it take a couple shots to confirm and feeling good about it. But yeah, it's 1 shot. A little.
You and I've sighted in hundreds of these, man. And to me, if I get out of there with 5 shots at 50 yards, and we're not talking about 200 yards, 50 yards, then I'm like, dude, I agree. That's a win.
100%. If I can get out of there in 5 shots, I'm like, man, that was easy. I'm totally with you. All right, let's move on. Now we're going to keep talking about zeroing. This one right here, I know is going to be some more controversy. And I want to explain my position on this and kind of why. I know there are some people that this is good for, but there's a lot of people that I think, again, kind of like the stereometric rangefinder. They get confused, they don't understand it, and then it causes more problems. And that is, and again, you got to let me explain, multiple zeros. All right. Now, not multiple zero profiles, meaning for different rifles. All right. I get that. You got a 223 you want to put it on. You want to take the scope off with your QD mount and go put it on your 6.5 Grendel. You got another zero profile, that's profile B. And maybe you want to go put it over here on your 308, that's profile C. That makes sense. I get that. I understand why people want to do that. They don't want to re-zero every single time. And maybe even doing that, maybe you're still going to go shoot it and test it to make yourself feel good. But hey, boom, took one shot. It's dead on. All right, we're good to go. Whatever. But what I'm talking about is the multiple yardage zeros inside of one profile. So let me give you an example. Let's say that I take a scope out. I put it on my rifle, my 6.5 Grendel, only rifle I'm going to have it on. I put it on there and I zero it at 50 yards. A lot of scopes have the option to go in there and add another yardage. So let's say I want to zero it at 100 yards. I can put a 100-yard zero. And maybe I want to go to 200. I can put a 200. I want to go to 300. Okay. Here's the reason that doesn't work like people think is I've had a lot of guys over the years who, again, I'm not making fun of anybody. We're not at all. We're doing this so people can learn. And once these guys get their scope and they figure it out, they're going to go, yeah, I see what you're saying. These guys will call and say, hey, how many different yardages can I have inside of one profile? I'm like, I don't know. Because I don't really look at that, to be honest. And sometimes like, oh, you can have 5. Okay, good. I want a 50, 100, 150, a 200, and a 250. I'm like, whoa, what caliber are you shooting? Well, I'm shooting a whatever, 223, a 6.5 Grendel, a common caliber. I'm like, listen, there's no drop difference that matters between 50 and 200. There's just not. So forget that. Okay, well then I want one that's going to be, let's say, at 200 and one that's at 300. Okay, I got it. Now, here's my question to you. So let's say that you've got a zero for 200 and you've got one for 300. Obviously, I know why you do that. So let's say that you've got a coyote out there. Now, number one, if you don't have a laser rangefinder, can you tell me exactly how far that he is? Well, maybe not. Maybe seems highly unlikely, but let's say you've got some landmarks and all right, that coyote is to 250 yards. Okay. Which zero do you use? Do you use the 200 and do you hold over? Or do you use the 300 and do you hold under? And then, now think about that, holding under. That's not something that most shooters are used to having to do. I understand some experienced shooters are, but most people are not, me included. And then what happens when that coyote is moving? He runs in. Now, wait a minute, you're on your 300, but now he's at 225. What is your hold under? You might know what your hold over, but now it gets very confusing. And changing those settings on the fly is often not quite as quick as you think. Sometimes at some scopes, it takes going into the menu 3 steps and over and down and up and save. Some it's a little bit quicker getting into a quick menu, but still having to go up and down. So I guess this is my point. Somebody I think left a comment the other day that they like to use, maybe one of those for a subsonic ammo and one for a supersonic. And I get that. At that point, to be honest, to just for my sanity and keeping it easy, I would use a totally different rifle profile. I would have profile A, and I'd make a note on my phone that says A is for my supersonic, 300 blackout. Profile B, totally different rifle profile, would still be on the same rifle, and that would be my subsonic if I was going to do that, to keep it simple. So I can understand that, why you would, kind of have that. And I understand, again, there's some guys with air rifles that are shooting closer ranges and the yardages matter. But again, when you start getting into remembering your holdover and your hold under and where are you at and knowing exactly how far that animal is, it gets confusing, it gets complicated. And from what I've seen with most guys that have tried to do it, they end up missing more shots than if they had just had a 100-yard zero or a 200-yard, whatever a normal zero amount, and figure out what we like to call Kentucky windage. Just figure out what your holdover is and make it happen. So again, it's something that I think sounds really cool on paper, but when you get into it, probably not as much. And again, I want to be clear, I'm not talking about multiple rifles. I'm talking about multiple distances. It might be handy for some people, but not for most.
All right. So you'll be able to look up on the website and find a place to email Jason directly all the hate mail. And tell him exactly why. You can comment to this video and tell everybody.
I will give your personal
Jason's
cell phone
wrong.
out, Hans. I do not.
You can just comment this video and tell him why he's wrong. But no, it is very, very confusing. I think a lot of people don't use it as much as they think that they would as far as the multiple zeros. So we're going to get on to number 4, and our fourth most overrated thermal scope feature are color palettes. And it is getting out of control, y'all. There are so many color palettes now. It is a race by the thermal manufacturers to see how many they can fit into one scope. It used to be a couple. Then it went to about 4 or 5, 6 or 7. Now we're like at 10. A new scope that was just put out onto the market. We talked about, Jason, the Bolt TX60. Now it's got like a green color palette. Just so many now. I swear, I think there's like 9 or 10 different color palettes on a lot of these scopes now. I will say this, color palettes look kind of cool on the videos. They look great on thumbnails. They get a lot of attention. They're bright. I would say if you get them out in the field, some of them are largely unusable. And I think that with the phone,
nice. A lot of people, as nice as you could be.
Yeah, unusable. Yeah. So a lot of people will call in and even agree. They're like, man, I've tried some of them and really, there's nothing better than white hot and black hot. Now, I will say that in certain situations, there are some color palettes that work good if it's really, really hot and humid and muggy outside. There's some that look okay. I think the more colors on the screen at the same time, to me, the worse. But really, it's really hard to just beat white hot and black hot. There's just, at the end of the day, those seem to work the best. They have the clearest contrast between the two colors and what's on the screen. And it just doesn't mix in a lot of nonsense, I would say. But they look great, and people ask about them, and it is a selling point because people ask about them. But when they call back and you bring it up, they're like, man, I tried it. I just like black hot, or I just like white hot. The others just make my head hurt or too dizzy, or it's hard to tell the animals and the trees or whatever. But I do think that the color palette thing is gotten a little out of hand, but it's okay. We love it. They're not charging us extra for it. So you know what? The more the merrier. Doesn't mean you have to use it. They're just there. But a lot of these color palettes are overrated.
Yeah.
What do you say?
And I 100% agree. I will say that this is funny that we're saying this, because if anybody really wants to, they're going to go back to all of our videos, including
more color
on your channel, this channel, the Outdoor Legacy channel.
Right.
We've done a lot of thumbnails that are in like rainbow color of some hogs. And
not because we like the color palette.
People click on it. I mean, it's just a fact. It's eye-catching. People like it. They click on it. But and that's just the truth. It's bright colors.
Yeah.
But Hans is right. A lot of these are, in my opinion, completely unusable. Some of them are usable. They're just not, what. And it's, again, this is a personal preference. Absolutely. If somebody tells me, hey man, I like this purple hot, or I like red hot, I don't judge it. Like, okay, cool, man. Yeah. If you like it, go for it. Use it. I mean, that to me, no different. Hans likes black hot. I like white hot. I mean, clearly I'm right and he's wrong, but that's okay.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
No,
exactly.
I do believe this is one of those places where it is a chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, Neapolitan. Maybe you like all those mixed together, and that's fine. But there's a lot of people, Hans is right, that call up and go, hey, does it have this rainbow fusion, whatever? And you're like, yeah, it does. And it's funny how many of them, they're like, oh, it looks great on the video. And you talk to them in 6, 8 weeks or, 6 months, or they're getting another scope in a couple of years. They're like, man, I thought I was going to like that. That's terrible. I can't use it. Like, yeah, we know. So
Anyway.
it's something that doesn't hurt anything to play with it. And if you like it, go for it.
And the thermal companies just need to keep packing them full of different color palettes so we can use them for the thumbnails. But if you see any of our like, and even on our reviews, we'll show the different color palettes. But if you see like any of our main videos, hunting videos, anything like that, it's either white hot or black hot.
That's right.
And we used to joke around, Jason and I, several years ago. We're like, yep, color palettes sell scopes because of all the different things. But it is, at the end of the day, people are really just using just a few of them, and we're not saying that they're all terrible. I do the red monochrome in really, really, really humid weather is pretty cool. But gosh, I cannot imagine trying to use it 100% of the time. No. So anyway,
okay,
you might agree, you might disagree, but
yeah,
it's just
no, I agree with you, but we'll see about the rest. All right, last one. This one, man, I didn't realize this until we really sat down and started like rolling the camera that these are going to be controversial, but I know they are. So I know this one is going to be, and the reason is we had a comment that was on our most underrated features, and a guy actually left a comment and said that he felt this was an underrated feature, and now we're going to call it an overrated feature. I know this is no insult to you, sir, at all. And I want to explain myself, and I'm going to say that we feel that, and there's a lot of different names for it, but I'm going to call it recoil activated video is an overrated feature. This is a feature that when turned on and you shoot and the scope senses or feels the recoil, it starts recording and records for a certain period of time and stops. And I know the logical question is, well, wait a minute, why do I want it recording after I've already shot? Well, what it's doing, and it's using more battery while it's doing this, but it's constantly recording. It's recording forever. This is what a lot of security cameras do. They're recording all the time. They're buffering, and they're keeping the last, let's just say the last minute of video.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last minute is constantly falling off. It's recording over it and it's deleting it. But then when it senses, let's say motion, I'm talking about a camera, it picks up and it goes whoop, rewind. Did they rewind anymore? Am I showing my age? It's not a VHS tape. You rewind, you rewind, whatever, say 30, 60 seconds, it picks up and starts recording. From there, it's saving that. That's what this thermal scope is doing. Again, all digitally. If it has this feature, recoil activated video or recoil activated recording or shot activated recording or whatever, a lot of different acronyms and names, but it does. It'll pick up a few seconds before the shot, and then it'll record for whatever, say 10, 15, 20 seconds after, and then it stops the video. Now you go, well, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with it. And there's nothing wrong with turning it on and having it. Okay, there's not. That's a perfectly fine backup, whatever. What I would say is that in all of my years, and I have yet to have a thermal manufacturer who has disagreed with me about this on their own thermal scopes. Okay, so I'm not just out here freelancing. It is not 100% guaranteed feature to work every time.
Right.
And there's a lot of things that can happen. Number one, guys that are on lower recoil rifles, say 22s, 17s, even a lot of things shooting subsonic ammo where there's just almost no recoil. It doesn't have enough recoil to consistently pick up that there was a shot. Even on some larger calibers that are suppressed, especially on a lot of these, AR style rifles, you just sometimes don't get enough recoil to trigger that so that it starts recording. Another issue can be maybe you do get enough recoil, but it just did not work that time. I think that the guys who really like it have had good luck with it, and it's worked consistently on their scope. I think one of the guys that left a comment, I think it sounded like he'd had excellent luck with it. I would say that a lot of people probably do, but a lot of people do not. And I think this is probably scope to scope dependent.
It is.
And I know this. I've had some of these scopes that have recoil activated video in them, and I've had them in my hands off of rifles, not mounted, playing with them. And I look up there and I go, wait a minute, why is it recording? Did I hit the button? And then I realize it like does it 3 more times. And I'm like, I know I did not touch that button. I realized that like hitting it in my hand, you know, I bumped my desk or just touching it wrong. It's so sensitive that it comes on. Then I've had others that I go out there on an unsuppressed rifle, you know, large caliber, and that thing goes off 1 out of 4 times. Or worse yet, this is the worst, is when it goes off and works correctly 9 out of 10 times or 19 out of 20 times. Because you know why? The one time that you want it to work, that one time when you got that quadruple on those coyotes out there by yourself and there's no one else to see it, I promise you that recoil activated video is not going to work. And pictures or it didn't happen, you know? Nobody's going to believe you. So it's not a bad feature. And it's not a bad, some optics will let you have it enabled, but you can still manually start and stop video. Some won't let you, so it's kind of funny. My advice to everybody is if you really want your video and you're serious about getting video, then you need to manually start and manually stop your video. And my reasoning is I want to record too much in the beginning. You know, I want to, I don't say I'm going to upload the video with 4 minutes of video before I shoot the hog, but I want to have it. I want to have that there. I don't know when I'm going to shoot sometimes. And he may do something really cool or crazy. He may get out there and roll around or whatever. I want that. And then I want to take the shot. And then I want to stop it when I want to stop it. Because you never know. I've had hogs that I shot and they do the old timber, I'm falling, roll over, and they're sitting there kicking their legs, and I'm watching, he's dead. And I mean, this goes on, and I'm just sitting there waiting for him to quit kicking. And next thing you know, he jumps up and runs on me. I might want that on video, but if I'm using this recoil activated video, I am a slave to whatever it records, however many seconds before it picks up and however many seconds after, and it stops. So again, not a bad feature. It's good for the guys who say, I always forget to press the button. I'm like, I understand that, but I promise you that if you forget enough times, you will remember. I mean, that's it happens to Hans and I. And over the years, we've forgotten enough that you go, am I recording? Yes. Okay, I'm recording. Let's get this thing going. Be done.
So it's not that it's a bad feature. It's just too unreliable because we've seen and we've talked to people that they say, yeah, the scope, you know, either it's going off when it shouldn't, it's recording when or saving videos when it shouldn't, or it's you know, not recording when it should, or one shot it may record 15 seconds before, one might just be 2 seconds before the shot. You know, so the inconsistencies and unreliability has made it an overrated feature. It's not that the concept is overrated. It's that the performance of it to date by all of these scopes, by all of these manufacturers, is just not reliable enough. And I, in secret behind closed doors, I think these manufacturers will say kind of the same thing. Like, yeah, you know, it's,
well, one manufacturer had it years ago and took it out. And they should have. I mean, they did. And theirs worked probably more reliable than some of what we're seeing right now. So at the end, I just want to say one last thing on it. Again, I'm not dogging you if you use it. I'm not saying you shouldn't use it. I'm just saying if you want to know you're getting the video, you need to make a mental note to yourself, force yourself, just like you've got to remember to take the safety off, like you got to remember to do all the other things. Start your video recording, stop your video recording. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that Hans and I never forget ourselves. It happens. But just don't be surprised when you don't get the video you wanted on the shot of a lifetime, because it just may not work 100%. When it does work, it's really cool. When it doesn't work, you want to take that thing and throw it out there in the pond. So that's all. Trying to save you some frustration. That's it.
So if we have missed something on the list, if there's something, another feature you feel like is overrated, comment, let us know. If there are shows and other topics that you want to hear about, let us know in the comments. Say, hey, I'd like to hear about, why Jason is always hating on, recoil activated video recording. Cause this isn't the first video that we've hated on, that one feature, but no. Anyway, and oh, you about to say something?
No. I'm just going to say, guys, listen, this is a show topic. All right. This is not anything written in stone. This is not Hans and I begging the manufacturers to quit doing this. We don't think this is something wrong. We don't think it's nefarious. We don't think it's anything needs to be fixed and, they don't need to put so many color palette. No, we're not saying that. We're just talking about features that might be, you may be the guy and all your buddies. It's super handy, super useful for you, and y'all love it. And that's perfectly fine. We're definitely not on a soapbox here. We're just trying to help some people that sometimes before they get the scope are really kind of like a kid, getting a new toy. You're like, oh, this is going to be so cool, and I'm going to do this. Sometimes they get hung up on a feature or two, and that's what they literally have hung their hat on. This feature, this is going to be so awesome, and then they get it, and they're really disappointed. The scope is awesome. The scope does everything that it should do. It'll kill all the hogs and the coyotes and varmints in the world, but they get laser focused on this one thing that they thought in their mind. They built up way too much, and then it's not as good as they want, and they have this disappointment, and there's no real reason because it's fluff. It's not necessary. So we're just trying to kind of manage some expectations. That's it.
Yeah, and basically saying don't buy the scope because it has one of these features. If one scope on paper looks just as good as another, but it has 10 color palettes instead of 9, don't buy it just because it's got 10 color palettes instead of 9 color palettes, or vice versa. Anyway, so if you want to purchase a night vision or thermal optic, and you need to talk, if we've confused you even more, if you were dead set on buying this scope because it had this one feature that we just dogged in this show, give us a call, 877-350-1818. We do it out of kindness and love and joking and all of that. But outdoorlegacygear.com. You can find all the optics on the website. Again, call us 877-350-1818. If you want to check out all of our past episodes, thelatenightvisionshow.com. You can find all of our social media accounts at Outdoor Legacy. Or also Hans ETX, where we do also some reviews. I do my own reviews over there, as well as other not so funny content at times. Sometimes jokes just miss the mark. And that's where they usually end up, on the Hans East Texas social media pages. Anyway, thank y'all for joining us. I don't think I missed anything for the pre-post. Yeah.
All right, guys. It's episode 317. Hope you enjoyed it. We hope to see y'all here again next week and every week right here on the Late Night Vision Show. Between now and then, y'all stay safe.